Chapter 2 Vacation time in summer. On a summer hot day in June, the Federal Pacific household is planning a vacation. Breaker Box and Chub Switches talk about it together and they get ready to talk to Tripper, and when they are ready, Chub Switches and Breaker Box ask their daughter Tripper if they wanna go on a vacation. Tripper is so excited and is like, "Where at?" Chub Switches says happily, "We are going to Trip Town." Breaker Box says excitedly, "We will have fun tripping our breakers there." Tripper says, jumping up and down, "Yay, I finally get to flick my switches around." The Federal Pacific family starts packing and books a flight to catch by a certain time. They hang around the house until it's time to go. When that time arrives, they head to the airport, and when they get out of the car and get signed in, Chub happily says, "How exciting, now let's get on the plane and start our trip." When Chub Switches, Breaker Box, and Tripper get on the plane, they just sit there until they arrive at Trip Town. Chub Switches while on the plane farted really loud on the leather seat, and Breaker Box is disgusted and is like, "Chub, how disgusting, don't do that on the plane." Tripper got to smell it and disgustedly said, "You daddy, go to the bathroom." Chub Switches just laughed the whole time like it was nothing. Breaker Box smacked him in the switch for farting, then he got up and tripped a breaker in Breaker Box's face, and Breaker Box was angry and was like, "Hey, sit down, you crazy." Breaker Box, Tripper and her parents land in Trip Town and they go to a nice hotel and get signed in. They go to their room and put their swimsuits on and go to a water park the hotel has. Tripper went down all the water slides and she farted on a couple of them, which means she took a rip on a water slide. Her dad Chub Switches heard her ripple a fart off the water slide and he nicely said, "Baby girl, we don't fart on water slides or in pools." Tripper said apologetically, "I'm sorry." Chub Switches comfortably said, "It's okay, just don't do it again." So they hang out at the water park for a few hours and then they go to an arcade. Tripper gets excited about going to the arcade and trips a breaker of excitement and she's like, "Woohoo, we are gonna play some games and possibly win prizes." Breaker Box says, "Yet we're gonna have fun," and she trips her breaker and laughs. Chub Switches excitedly says, "Oh hot, mama just tripped a breaker, she's coming in hot now, you can't get on me." And Tripper for tripping cause you just did. Breaker Box said, "Chub, we're on vacation, we can trip our breakers if we want, just not when we're living our normal lives." Chub Switches says, "Well, you can refuse to trip your breakers at home, but me and Tripper will trip ours still." Breaker Box says, "Okay, don't do it at dinner though." Tripper started playing skee-ball and she liked it. She won some tickets. She also played video games as well and earned some more tickets, and after they were all done at the arcade then they went to turn their tickets in for prizes. Tripper got 200 tickets and she won some more switches just in case she needed some, and she won a few whoopee cushions and some candy. Chub Switches and Breaker Box got some candy and Chub Switches got some whoopee cushions. Chub Switches will prank his wife with it in a little bit. So Chub Switches and his wife and daughter go to a restaurant in the hotel to eat dinner. They eat Chinese food. Chub Switches gets chicken fried rice with sweet and sour sauce. Breaker Box gets orange chicken and Tripper gets orange chicken as well. They all get Pepsi to drink and have some fortune cookies. They get ice cream sundaes after dinner, then they go back to the room to get ready for bed. While they are getting ready for bed, Chub Switches puts a whoopee cushion on Breaker Box's side of the bed. When Breaker Box gets in her bed, she doesn't know there's a whoopee cushion there when she sits in it and jumps and throws the whoopee cushion at Chub Switches cause she pretty much knows how her husband is. Tripper said, "Daddy made you fart." Breaker Box says, "Yay, well he's nasty, plus that wasn't real." Chub Switches tripped a breaker switch when Breaker Box threw the whoopee cushion at him and he started laughing. Breaker Box smacks him in the tripped breaker and he freaked out and says, "Oh hot woman, watch where you're smacking." So they all go to sleep for the night and then wake up the next morning and eat breakfast. They have coffee and donuts. Chub Switches excitedly says, "This caffeine gonna make me trip breakers." Breaker Box makes a joke saying, "Chub, don't turn the lights off." Chub Switches starts laughing. After they are done with breakfast they go bowling. They get to their lane and start bowling. Chub Switches started out with getting strikes. Tripper proudly said, "Ooh, Dad is good at bowling." Breaker Box replied, "Yes, he's been bowling for a while." Chub Switches said, "Tripper, it's your turn." Tripper goes and she gets a gutter ball at first and she is disappointed and says, "Oh no, I got a gutter ball." Chub Switches comfortably says, It's okay, you'll get better, just practice and throw it straight down the middle of the lane. So Tripper throws her second ball and gets 8 pins down. Her parents say, "Good job baby." Tripper says, "Thank you," and her parents say, "You're welcome." It is Breaker Box's turn to bowl, so she goes and gets 7 pins, and then on her second ball she gets a spare, and she says, "Yay." So they get done bowling and then go out to lunch. They go to McDonald's and get cheeseburgers and fries and soda. Tripper says, "This is the best restaurant ever." Chub Switches replies, "Yay it is." Breaker Box says, "It's good but not for our bodies. We have chunky switches because of it." Then Tripper shows off her fat switch by tripping it, and then Breaker Box says, "Tripper, you silly girl." Tripper and Chub Switches laugh for a while about how funny tripping a breaker is. After they are done at McDonald's, then they go to the park. Breaker Box and Chub Switches sit on the bench and watch Tripper play on the playground. Tripper plays on the monkey bars and climbs all over and slides down the slide. Tripper says, "This is fun and amazing." When Tripper is in the slide and it's a tube slide, she trips a breaker in the slide and the sound reverbs in the slide and she starts laughing, and when she exits the slide her mom says, "Did you just trip your breaker in the slide, you goofball?" Tripper laughs and says, "Yes, lol." While Breaker Box is talking to her daughter, Chub Switches is just laughing so much he even accidentally trips his breaker. Breaker Box says, "Baby, you okay?" Chub Switches says, "Yeah, I just gotta flip my own breaker back on." So he turns on his breaker and they stay at the park until dark, and then they go to eat dinner. They go get Imus pizza for dinner. Chub Switches goes to order a mushroom pizza with barbecue sauce on it for him and his wife and daughter. He also gets a 2-liter of Sprite to drink. He brings it back to the hotel and they eat in their room. The 3 Federal Pacific Breaker Boxes gobble up their food and drink their soda. Tripper says, "That was so delicious." Chub Switches says, "I know right, it makes me wanna trip a breaker from excitement." Chub Switches says to Tripper, "Hey, go sneak up on mommy while she's brushing her switches and flip one of your breakers and she will probably jump." Tripper says, "Okay." So Tripper does what her dad said, and Breaker Box jumped from being startled and she accidentally tripped a breaker, and she said, "Tripper, you just made me trip a breaker and now my breaker hurts. Now I gotta turn it back on." So while Breaker Box is turning her breaker back on, Chub Switches is laughing so much. Tripper said, "Daddy told me to sneak up on you and flip my switch." Breaker Box went up to Chub Switches and slapped him in the switches and said, "Chub, don't ever do that again." Chub Switches was like, "We were just trying to have fun." Breaker Box was like, "That wasn't funny, that hurt my breaker. How would you like it if I did that to you?" Chub Switches said, "I wouldn't care, I love tripping my breakers." Chub Switches apologizes for upsetting Breaker Box and they get past it and have more fun. Chub Switches and his daughter and wife get ready for bed and then go to bed. They wake up the next morning and get ready to go back home. After they pack up and walk out the door and sign out, they go back to the airport and head home. Breaker Box asks Tripper, "Was that a fun vacation and should we do this again?" Tripper replies, "Yes, that was awesome, I would love to do this again." Chub Switches says, "We had a blast flipping breakers and everything. Goodbye Trip Town, welcome back." Chub Switches and Breaker Box and Tripper slept on the plane on the way home. While they are sleeping, Chub Switches farts really loud and wakes up his family, even himself, and all the other Breaker Box riders stared at him, and Breaker Box said, "Chub Switches, what the heck is wrong with you? You're so disgusting." Chub Switches got embarrassed and he tripped his poot switch and everyone started laughing at him. Then his daughter Tripper said, "Daddy tripped a breaker, ha ha ha," and he also farted. Chub Switches said, "Please excuse me for farting and excuse my tripped breaker. I wanna go back to sleep now." They go back to sleep, and when they get back to the airport they get ready to go back home. When they get home they unpack and begin their lives again.